It's crazy how much the sports world is changing, right? Like, it feels like every day there's some new tech or some league is shaking things up.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost impossible to keep up with.
Right. And that's kind of why we're doing this deep dive today. We want to give everyone a clear look at what's really driving the future of sports, cut through the noise.
Exactly. And to do that, we're going to focus on Fast Company's list of the 10 most innovative sports companies for 2025.
Good stuff. So, we're not just talking about cool companies, we're using this list as like a roadmap to understand where the big changes are happening.
Right. We'll look at what these companies are doing, but more importantly, why it matters.
Right.
What it tells us about the future of the game.
Love it. And I think it's impossible to ignore just how big a role tech is playing in all this.
Mm,
Artificial intelligence is everywhere now.
it really is. From scouting players to how we watch games, AI is completely changing the game.
And then you've got VR and shared reality, which is kind of blowing up the whole idea of what it even means to be a spectator.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you can't forget the leagues themselves. They're actually willing to change things up now, experiment with rules and formats.
Yeah. Which is huge. I mean, who would have thought we'd see the day when MLB actually speeds up the game?
Right. It's a really interesting time to be a sports fan. So much is changing so fast.
Absolutely. So let's dive into these 10 companies, the ones leading the charge. First up, the WNBA. Last year was a huge year for them, not just on the court, but culturally, too.
Definitely. It seemed like they really tapped into something,
Hmm.
became this cultural phenomenon almost overnight.
Right. And it's interesting because it kind of coincided with this wave of amazing talent coming in from college. You had Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, all these big names.
Yeah. But it wasn't just luck. The league itself made some really smart moves. They really elevated the draft, turned it into this big event.
For sure. They went all in on marketing, too. Expanded the team, brought in a new chief growth officer, the whole 9 yards.
Which is a smart move, right?
Yeah.
You see an opportunity, you got to invest to make the most of it. And it paid off. They attracted big sponsors, Glossier, New Balance, Bumble.
Yeah, which is a big deal. It means those brands see the value in the WNBA and its audience. And it's not just about the money. The league's focus on social justice issues with the Commissioner's Cup and all really resonated with people.
Yeah. That focus on things like reproductive rights and voter mobilization, it made the league feel more relevant, more
Yeah.
connected to what's happening in the world.
Absolutely. And the numbers speak for themselves. 242% increase in sellouts, 2.4 million ticket buyers, over 54 million viewers.
Yeah, those are huge jumps. You can't argue with numbers like that. And then, of course, there's that massive media rights deal, $2.2 billion over 11 years.
Yes, starting in 2026, that's a game changer for sure. It gives them the resources to keep growing and expanding. And speaking of expanding, they added teams in Toronto and Portland, and there's another one coming to the Bay Area soon.
All signs point to the WNBA being on its incredible upward trajectory.
No doubt. Remember, like a year ago, people were wondering about the league's future. Now, Morning Consult ranks the WNBA as America's fastest growing brand. Talk about a turnaround.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you combine a great product with smart business decisions and a commitment to social issues that people care about.
It's a winning formula. Okay, let's talk about a company that's trying to change how we experience live sports. Cosm.
Cosm is all about immersion. They're building these incredible venues like giant LED domes, 87 feet in diameter, that show these 8K plus shared reality experiences.
Shared reality, that's a new one. So it's like you and a bunch of other people can all be in this digital space together, even if you're not physically in the same place.
Right. Like imagine being courtside at an NBA game, but you're actually at home on your couch. That's the idea. And they use some really high-end tech to pull it off.
I was just going to ask about that. So they've got their own CX engine, and they use Unreal Engine, which is that same software they use for like super realistic video games.
Exactly. They process multiple live camera feeds so it feels like you're right there in the action. They've got venues in LA and Dallas already, and they're showing everything from NFL and NBA playoffs to UFC and college football.
Wow. And they've partnered with all the big broadcasters, too. ESPN, NBC Sports, TNT Sports, Fox Sports. Plus, they do Cirque du Soleil shows, so it's not just sports.
Right. They're trying to create this whole new kind of entertainment experience. And it seems to be working. They sell out events all the time, even with tickets costing anywhere from $22 to over $100.
That's impressive. They also got $250 million in funding, which put their value at over $1 billion. It's clear investors believe in what they're doing.
And they're already expanding. They're going to build venues in Atlanta and Detroit, starting construction next year.
So they're betting big on this idea of shared immersive viewing becoming the future of sports fandom.
It makes sense. People want to feel connected to those big events, even if they can't be there in person.
All right. Let's shift gears and talk about a league that's been around forever, but hasn't always been known for being quick to change, Major League Baseball. But lately, they've been making some big moves.
Yeah, MLB has surprised a lot of people with how willing they've been to actually change the game itself. They started making rule changes back in 2023 to speed things up and make the games more exciting. And they kept tweaking things last year.
Yeah, they adjusted the runner's lane, got stricter with the pitch clock, limited mound visits, stuff like that. Small changes, but they've had a big impact.
Definitely. The average game time last year was the shortest it's been in like 40 years.
Crazy, right? And it's not just about shorter games. They had their highest attendance in 7 years, and streaming numbers on MLB TV were through the roof.
It seems like fans are really responding to these changes.
Which is great. And get this, the median age of ticket buyers actually went down last year. Plus, they saw a huge increase in viewership among young adults on MLB Network and FS1.
That's huge for the future of the sport, right?
Yeah,
Gotta get those younger fans hooked.
absolutely. And you know what? It proves something important. Even these old traditional institutions can change and thrive if they're open to new ideas.
Totally. It's about adapting to the times.
Speaking of adapting, the viewership numbers for the postseason last year were insane. The Yankees-Dodgers World Series averaged almost 16 million viewers.
Yeah, that's a 74% increase from the year before. And Game 5 had the second highest viewership of any non-football or Olympics broadcast since 2019.
Crazy. And all the playoff rounds saw double-digit increases in viewership. Even global viewership is up, especially in Asia.
All those rule changes, the faster pace, it's clearly paying off. And financially, MLB is doing better than ever. Total revenue topped $11 billion last year for the first time ever.
That's a huge win for them. Okay, let's move from the pros down to high school sports. We're going to talk about Snap, mobile.
They're doing something really important, trying to help high school programs, especially the ones that don't have a lot of money, operate more professionally.
Their Snap. Mobile One app is pretty impressive. It does everything: scheduling, fundraising, fan engagement, even merchandise sales and video stuff through their partnership with Hurdle.
It's a one-stop shop for everything high school sports. And their FanX platform is really cool. It helps schools generate revenue through merchandise sales and local advertising.
That's so smart. A lot of these programs struggle financially, so having more ways to raise money is a game changer.
For sure. And Snap. Mobile's business model makes sense. They take transaction fees, do payment processing, offer subscriptions, and have premium features. It's a win-win for them and the schools.
And it's working. They've helped schools raise almost $1 billion, and they work with over 130,000 teams and groups. Plus, they're serving over 10,000 schools now, with 1,500 new schools joining just last year.
That's incredible growth. They also got certified by the National Institute of Standards and Technology for cybersecurity, which is really important when you're handling sensitive data from so many schools.
Makes sense. You got to make sure all that information is secure. All right, now we're going to talk about Overtime, which started as a content company but has now branched out into creating its own sports leagues.
Yeah. Overtime built this huge following among young sports fans with their content, and now they're using that to create these really cool developmental leagues in basketball, 7-on-7 football, and boxing.
Right. And their Overtime Select Women's Basketball League launched last year and made a huge splash. They got some of the top high school players in the country.
Which is really impressive, right?
So-
I think it shows the power of their brand and their social media reach.
Yeah.
Plus, they offer these players a chance to play at a high level and get exposure without jeopardizing their college eligibility.
Right. They had over 120 million views and 10 million engagements on social media during their first season. That's insane for a new league.
It really is.
Yeah.
And they're not just focused on the games. They provide professional-level facilities, media training, financial literacy education, the whole package.
It's like they're giving these athletes a taste of the pro experience while still letting them be kids and keep their amateur status. And their content creation background gives them a big advantage. They've got millions of subscribers on YouTube and a huge following on TikTok and X.
Totally. They know how to create content that people love, and it's paying off. They're close to hitting $100 million in revenue this year. Plus, they have big investors like Liberty Media, Morgan Stanley, and Jeff Bezos backing them.
That's a sign that they're doing something right. It seems like overtime is going to be a major force in youth sports for a long time.
It's exciting to see what they do next.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about a company that's trying to level the playing field in soccer scouting. AI.io.
AI.io is using AI to make it easier for undiscovered players anywhere in the world to get noticed. Their A-Scout app basically turns any smartphone into a scouting tool.
Really? So how does it work?
Players download the app and do these standardized drills. The app analyzes their performance using AI and gives them scores.
That's so cool. So pro clubs can use this data to scout players from all over the globe, not just the ones they happen to see in person.
Exactly. It opens up so many more opportunities for players who might not have access to traditional scouting networks. And some big clubs are already using it, like Chelsea and Burnley from the English Premier League and some MLS teams.
Wow, so it's not just a cool idea, it's actually being used.
Right, and it's making a difference. They made the app free for all U.S. players last year, and since they launched in 2023, over 147 players has gotten trials or contracts with pro teams after being scouted through A-Scout.
That's amazing. They've got over 100,000 users on the platform now.
It's a game changer. It levels the playing field and gives everyone a chance to show what they can do no matter where they're from or what their background is.
Love it. Okay, now we got to talk about some gear. Adidas has been making some seriously innovative athletic shoes.
They've had some major breakthroughs, like take the Adizero Audios Pro Evo 1. It's super lightweight, 40% lighter than the older models, and it's got this unique 4-foot rocker design.
Yeah, and runners are crushing it in those shoes. Tejas Asefa broke the women's marathon world record wearing them, and Tejas Katima won the Berlin Marathon.
Exactly. They've been involved in 22 major race wins, including 2 world records, 4 national records, and an Olympic record. It's crazy.
It is. And then they have the Ogravic Speed Ultra for trail running. It has this curved rocking feature that they developed with the University of Salzburg.
That rocker is designed to help runners conserve energy and reduce fatigue on those long, tough trails.
Yeah.
And it's working. Eli Hemming won the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc 57K wearing them, and Tony McCann won the 100K.
Wow. They've really figured out how to make shoes specific to the demands of trail running.
Absolutely. And then there's the F50 Plus soccer boot,
Yeah.
which is basically a running shoe for soccer.
Yeah.
It's got this special sole plate and foam that helps players sprint faster and get more energy return.
It's so cool how they're taking technology and ideas from one sport and applying them to another.
Right. And all this innovation is paying off for Adidas. Their financial performance last year was really strong.
Makes sense. When you're making cutting-edge products that athletes love, people are going to buy them. All right, let's talk about a company that's behind the scenes but super important, WSC Sports.
WSC Sports uses AI to create and deliver sports highlights. They work with over 500 partners worldwide, including the NBA, NHL, La Liga, and NASCAR.
Wow, that's basically everyone.
Right. And they're not just doing game highlights anymore. They have this around the game feature that analyzes all kinds of sports content like press conferences and combines it with game footage.
That's smart. Fans want more than just highlights these days.
Totally. They also launched in-app stories, which are those vertical videos like you see on social media, to help leagues and teams create content for their own apps.
Makes sense. Got to keep up with the times.
Exactly. And they have this discovery network that helps distribute content across all these different platforms. But the really cutting-edge stuff is their new generative AI division. They built this large sport model called LSM, which is the first language model specifically for sports.
Wait, a language model for sports? What does that even mean?
It means it can understand and process all kinds of sports, data, video, audio, text. And they're using it to create AI-generated commentary in multiple languages.
So, like, the computer can commentate on the game.
Pretty much. It's
Okay.
crazy. They're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI in sports.
They are, and with their global reach and their partnership with ESPN's Innovation Center, it seems like they're going to be a major player in the sports content world for a long time.
No doubt. They're changing how we watch and consume sports. All right, let's finish up with a company that's using VR to revolutionize football. Status Pro.
Status Pro is interesting because it was founded by former NFL players, right?
Yeah, they're using their first-hand knowledge of the game to create these incredibly immersive VR experiences for players, coaches, and fans.
They started with a training platform that uses real NFL data to create these on-field simulations, like you're actually in the game.
And they took that tech and built NFL Pro Era, which is the only official VR NFL game out there. It lets you experience the game from the quarterback's perspective.
That's got to be so cool.
It is. It was a huge hit last year. They had over 1.5 million users, and it was the fastest-selling sports game on MetaQuest.
Wow, people love it.
They also have this cool thing called the Pro Era Visualizer, which they showed off on ESPN. It lets analysts break down plays from any player's perspective.
So you can see what the quarterback sees, what the receiver sees, anyone on the field.
Exactly. And the clips they've been showing on ESPN have been getting millions of views online. It's a really cool way to help fans understand the game better.
And it's not just for TV. A bunch of NFL teams, like the Ravens, Vikings, and Browns, are using Status Pro's training technology.
It's becoming a real tool for player development. And with investors like LeBron James and Drake on board, they've got a lot of momentum.
That's a pretty impressive list of backers. It seems like they're onto something big. All right, last but not least, let's talk about Parity, a company that's working to help female athletes.
Parity is trying to close the gender income gap in sports by connecting female athletes with brands and sponsors. They have over 1,100 athletes in their network across more than 80 sports.
That's a huge network.
And they guarantee their athletes a minimum of 1 cent per follower per campaign. It might not seem like a lot, but it adds up. They've helped female athletes generate over $3.5 million in sponsorship revenue.
Wow, that's amazing, especially for athletes in less popular sports who might not have a lot of other opportunities.
Exactly. And they've worked with some big brands like Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, and Strava. They also partnered with SurveyMonkey to do a global study on fan engagement in women's sports.
I remember that. They found out that a lot more men watch women's sports than people think.
Right, which is a good sign. And Parity is really good at helping their athletes build their personal brands. There was this one athlete whose social media following blew up after she did a campaign with Parity.
That's awesome. They're really making a difference for these athletes.
It's so important to support female athletes and help them get the recognition and opportunities they deserve.
Couldn't agree more. So that's it. 10 incredibly innovative companies that are changing the game in all kinds of ways. We've seen how AI is revolutionizing scouting, content creation, and even the fan experience.
And VR is creating these incredibly immersive experiences that blur the lines between being a spectator and being an athlete.
And we've seen established leagues like MLB willing to make big changes to stay relevant and attract new fans. Plus, companies like Parity are working hard to level the playing field for female athletes.
It's a really exciting time to be following the world of sports. So much is happening, and it's all happening so fast.
It is. So here's something to think about. What do you think is the next big thing in sports? What innovations are going to have the biggest impact on athletes, fans, and the entire industry in the years to come? Let us know in the comments.
It's a question worth pondering. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.